I hope that folks can hear our hearts as we share and realize that being a Christian's real. It's not peaches and cream 24 hours a day, and it's not drudgery either. It's a beautiful way to live.
You are listening to the Christian Music Archive podcast, part of the New Release Today podcast network. I'm your host, Dave Maurer. Each week, I share stories about Christ, community, and music, chatting with musical guests who you will find listed on the pages of the Christian Music Archive. There are thousands of creative men and women who have helped shape the soundtrack of the Christian faith, and we get to hear their stories, learn about how Christ has made a difference in their life, and hopefully along the way, we'll learn how we can be a better part of our community. I probably don't need to introduce my guest today because as soon as you hear his voice, you'll know exactly who it is. As the lead singer for one of the most iconic Christian rock bands of all time, he's sold over 10 million albums. He's also released a half-dozen solo projects of his own and is a member of the Union of Sinners and Saints and the J Band, just to name a few. In fact, I think that when John Schlitt's time on earth is done, he'll probably just sing his way through the pearly gates on his way to hanging out with Jesus for eternity. As a regular listener, you know that I am very passionate about the work of Mercy, Inc. Mercy is a Christian humanitarian group that works around the world to change the lives of people from a wide range of backgrounds. Today, I'd like to share with you about Bethesda Medical Clinic in Haiti. Dr. Rodney and his staff provide a wide range of medical treatments to those living in Cap-Haitian Haiti. But one of the key elements of their work is making sure that the patient's spiritual health is addressed as well. I've been to Bethesda a couple of times and have seen firsthand as the staff prays with their patients every day. Patients come to the clinic early each day to share in Bible study and prayer. Then they are treated for HIV and malaria. There are baby and mama wellness checks. Patients are treated for broken bones and are provided physical therapy. I'd love for you to get involved in the great work that Mercy Inc. is doing in Haiti through Bethesda Medical Clinic. Head over to christianmusicarchive.com/mercy to learn about how you can make a difference in the hearts and physical bodies of the people of Haiti. That's christianmusicarchive.com/mercy. And thanks in advance for your help. John Schlitt had it all: a successful band, a career that was really going places, and a life that was, well, spiraling out of control. But God had other plans, and through a dramatic interaction with his wife and pastor, John began a journey that took him out of music so that he could focus on his relationship with Jesus. And just when John thought music would never be a part of his life again, along came an opportunity to sing with a little band called Petra. And for the next 30 years or so, God used John to help spread the gospel around the world as one of, as I said, the most iconic voices in Christian music. So let's hear this story from John himself. John Schlitt, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, sir.
How are you, my friend?
You know what? I'm hanging out in my easy chair with my glasses on, taking it easy. What can I say? Not much of a rock star look here.
Well, COVID has kind of wiped out rock star for most of us, hasn't it?
Oh man, it's just it's totally thrown me off, man. You know, I'm out of shape, I think. Jeez.
Hey, I was told that round is a shape, so I'm going with that.
Oh, no. No. Not for a lead singer, trust me.
There you go. Well, John, I just really appreciate your being willing to take some time and hang with us today.
Sure.
I would kind of like to just kind of hear what God's doing in your life these days, maybe get a little bit of your testimony. And, find out. I know you're doing a lot of stuff with woodworking and renovation stuff. That I'm excited to hear about that. But, and then also, if you have a couple of stories that you want to tell about how God has used you and the band over the past, years, that would be fun. You probably got one or two of them.
I got a few. Yeah, I got a few. Nothing else, my gosh, just the fact that God's been part of my life for the 20 years through Petra, and then after that, 15 years as solo artist, and I've seen a lot. God is showing me stuff today. As the COVID thing is happening, which I'm very. I got to be careful because I get political on me on people, but it just irritates me that we're going through this kind of stuff, and so I have to really get back into understanding that God's in control. I'm
Amen.
not, So that's tough. That's tough. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, you have made a career of singing. I mean, you've been doing that almost all your life.
Yep.
You started before college even, right?
Actually, I started. Well, yeah, my gosh, yeah, I started my own band when I was 13.
Uh-huh.
Went all through high school. Actually, did it for a little band in the middle of nowhere from a little town. We actually did real good. At that time, the only place a rock band could play were pretty much in sock hops and small bars.
Yeah.
So my mom would have to go with us if we played at a bar. My mom would have to go in to chaperone us, but she did, and that was that. Then when I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Illinois, and I broke my band up, and they went without me for about a month and a half, and pretty much it dissolved. And then I went. My freshman year in college, I just totally concentrated on college.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to flunk out.
Right.
And that was the big conversation. You got to go. If you can make it through your freshman year, you're fine. So I actually was trying to be a real student. Did fine.
You were an engineering major, right?
Yeah. Actually, I started out as an aeronautical astronomical engineer.
Oh.
And then the space program took a big dive, and aeronautical engineers were pumping gas and delivering groceries. I said, okay, this is a major discipline, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I thought my dad was a civil engineer. So I decided, okay, I'm going to be a civil engineer. Found out later he was a mechanical engineer, but I found that after I became a civil engineer. And I said, well, Dad, I became a civil engineer because I'm a mechanical engineer. I go, oh, man.
So did you ever think you were going to be an engineer, or was it always that just kind of in the back of your mind, I'm just doing this because I'm supposed to, music is where I'm going to be?
Yeah. Well, here's what I knew I was going to be, if I was going to be in anything, get a degree, and it was going to be some kind of engineering.
Okay.
And I figured that I would be working as an engineer for, the major part of my life, but I wanted to get the music out of my system.
Okay.
And I told my dad and mom were always amazing. And they said, all we're asking is you get a degree. And I actually, when I joined Head East my sophomore year, I almost flunked out of school my sophomore year because of that. And I went to my parents. I said, you know what? I don't need to go to school. This band is going to make it. Mm. And my dad and my mom goes, well, maybe you should. And my dad goes, nope. He is getting a degree, and then he can do what he wants. Yeah. It wasn't even a question, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I had to quit the band, and they said, well, we're gonna. I said, I'd like to join after I graduate because we're gonna be big by that time.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't. So the day I took my last final exam, I joined the band again, and it was in pretty bad shape at the time, and it took us about a year to get it back on its feet.
Okay.
And found a new guitar player from the original 5 guys that were the band when I left it.
Okay.
4 of us got back together, and the guitar player became a Christian while I was in school, and was no possible way he was going to join the band again. Mm. So we signed up a kid out of Peoria, Illinois. Ended up being amazing. He was a major part of the band.
Okay. Wrote
Never Been Any Reason, Love Me Tonight. Wrote pretty much the songs that are classic for that band.
Okay.
And but we, but what's funny is, okay, I figured I would go for 3 or 4 years, and then it would collapse. But no, it got bigger and bigger. Got more hooked into the backstage garbage that you get hooked in.
Right.
We got to be a big band, and toured every major tour that was happening in the U.S. at the time. I had the biggest booking agent in the country, probably the best label in the country. We for a little band that did it all themselves, they did pretty good.
Yeah.
Only problem is, man, I was living the musician's dream, but when you live it every day, it gets old. So you're always looking for that next thrill. And I'm afraid that booze and cocaine came my way. And in 1980, March of 1980, I was fired from the band because I was so messed up.
Yeah.
Now, I think it was a power play, but I'll be honest, God knew what he was doing, and I needed to be gone. So I got fired.
Whose power play was it, right? It was probably God's power play.
Absolutely. Think about it. You know, I had learned to be a front man for a pretty major band. Seriously, I was playing in front of 100,000 people, 20,000 every night.
Wow.
I mean, I learned how to be a front man to a rock band.
Yeah.
But again, I was the backstage scene in the secular system, especially for someone who believed in God but didn't have any idea who Christ was. I was fair game.
Yeah.
And man, the enemy tried to chew me up and did a pretty good job. When I got fired, I started my own band called the Johnny Band.
Okay.
To prove the headies I didn't need them. Arrogance. And it really, I think looking back at it, was just an excuse to stay drunk and coked up for about 6 months straight. I say almost 24 hours a day. It really felt like that. And that's not much of an exaggeration. And it ended when on August 29th, I woke up on my couch, realizing that I had passed out and missed my anniversary party that friends were going to give us. And my 1-year-old son was looking at me, you know, like, why are you here on the couch, Dad?
Yeah.
You know, my daughter was playing over in the room because it was unusual that I was available. So they were playing in the living room around their dad. And all of a sudden the voice goes, you know, you're worth more dead than alive. And I said, yeah, that is true. So I got up, sat in a chair in the living room. And as I was determining, I wasn't going to use a gun because I didn't want to leave a mess for the kids. I started trying to figure out what kind of combination of pills would be as quick and painless as possible. Now, in that 6-month period, I was on a binge that was just total disaster. Seriously, I was going down a hill that really I don't think anyone would have returned on their own. At the same time, my wife gets saved, which makes it even worse for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be living with a Jesus freak.
Yeah.
I'm a rock star, you know? And she kept trying to tell, I'd make the mistake of, what world are you living in that you're so happy all the time? And she'd go, I'm glad you asked. And she tried to tell me about Christ, and I wouldn't accept it.
Now, had you grown up with Jesus in the family? I mean, when you were in... No, so this was a brand new concept to you.
I grew up with God. My mom was a Catholic. My dad was a Lutheran. We were from a little Midwest town. So I absolutely believed in God. I prayed to God every night.
Okay.
But I didn't know Jesus. Yeah. And I'm telling you, for anyone that can't understand the difference, there is a difference.
Yeah.
You can say God all day long. Heathens believe in God, believe there's a God.
The devil believes in God.
Oh, gosh, yes. But he also knows Christ.
Yeah.
He also fears Christ, and you know why. But anyway, I'm sitting in my chair trying to determine what to do. And my wife taps me on the shoulder and says, now remember, you promised you'd come and talk to my pastor tonight. I said, when? She said, this last night when you were drunk. So I said, all right, you know what? Fine. And I went there with an attitude. I went there to let her know that I tried. So when I finished what I was going to do, she can remember that I tried, and that she'd have better memories of me. I went to that pastor's house that night with an attitude, and I walked out with the Holy Spirit.
Wow. And
my life was changed forever.
What was it about that meeting that said, I'm going to make this change?
Oh, the pastor goes, do you know Jesus? I said, well, yeah, I'm an American. I go to church twice a year. Oh, wrong thing to say. You don't know Jesus. You don't know that Jesus loves you. You don't know that Jesus has a plan for your life. You don't know the Jesus that knows exactly what you're thinking right now. I'm going, whoa. And I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit just hit me right between the eyes.
Wow.
And before I knew it, do you want to know Jesus? I said, uh-huh. I just shook my head, yes.
Yeah.
And finally said the sinner's prayer after I could talk again. And again, it was like a load had lifted off my shoulders that I didn't even know was there. You know, the enemy. I like to use this comparison about, you know, a frog can sit in a pan and you can slowly boil them.
Yep.
And they doesn't, you know, they don't know it.
Yep.
I was slowly being boiled by the garbage the enemy's pouring on me.
Yeah.
And he thought he already had me. Walked in that pastor's house, Christ was there. Walked out, and he was with me forever, you know, from then on. So now, was I perfect? Absolutely not. Did I blow it a lot? Yes, because I was still in the Johnny band, you know, and I would go out at these bars every weekend and just fall flat on my face as far as a Christian walk.
Yeah.
I'd come back, and the little church that we were going to would pray. I mean, you know, and they'd pray for me. Says, John, I'm telling you, God's got a plan for you. God's got a plan for you. Just love him. Know he forgives you. And they were just real supportive. Finally, it got to a point where I just said, I can't take this anymore. I can't look at my wife and my friends at church and my kids after the temptations were even greater at these small little bars I was playing than they were in the touring with Head East, which was big time, you know, because the enemy didn't want to let go.
Yeah.
So, make a long story short, I quit the band. I quit music altogether. Told my manager and booking agent and parents and and they said, no possible way. And finally my wife goes, here's how it is. It's music or me. And I said, there you go. That's all I needed. Yeah. And it was over. And I thought I'd never sing again.
Thank God for loving, faithful wives who sometimes give it to us straight when we need it the most.
We can't, for anyone who's been married and knows what kind of amazing gift you have as far as a wife, you need to understand how gifted you really are. And I do. I mean, I've been married for going on 50 years coming up in August.
Wow.
And I don't deserve her at all, and I never will. But for some reason, God has decided to bless me with a superhuman being. So, especially a super spiritual human being. So, and that's how it is. You know, it's one of the many unbelievable gifts God's given me.
Yeah. So, what did you put your music aside and you said, I'm done. And you, from what I read, you went and worked in a factory.
Yep. Listen, it was quite a change for me. But remember, my resume said graduated from University of Illinois civil engineer, rock star.
Oh,
that's it.
Oh,
rock star. And so I cut my hair. My father-in-law was so happy that I was getting a real job. He bought me a 3-piece suit. So I cut my hair, put on a 3-piece suit, started applying for jobs all over Illinois as a civil engineer. And at that time, engineers were a dime a dozen. Illinois was going through a depression. And it was a waste of my time. Finally, I started applying for anything, you know, and I finally got a job. Finally, someone trusted me with my resume to sweep a floor in the tool and die factory in my little hometown. And really the reason I got it was because I knew how to draft. And he could get me for nothing. I could be drawing up these plans for him for nothing. Plus he gets a clean floor every morning, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, a tool and die factory is actually very cool because you make these dies and stuff and you make them yourself. And they finally started trusting me in doing that. So I started working. But that lasted for about 6 months. And I was making nothing. But it was enough to feed my family at that time. About the time I was going to need more money, I get a job at a coal mine that's being developed very close to my hometown. And it was a temporary job, about 6 months, but it doubled my salary. And about that time, some debts came. I was so far in debt because of that Johnny Band thing and still doing coke and all that. I'd gone through any savings we ever had, and we were hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think, now as a Christian, I was trusting God a lot, but I was a baby Christian.
Right.
And I didn't see how he was ever going to do it. And so I just took it day by day,
Yeah.
and the church would, John, trust me, God will take care of you. God will provide. I'm going, yeah, great. That's fine. But,
So during any of this time, was music a part of your life at all? Or did you literally hang
No.
it up and you said, I'm done? You washed your hands
Hey,
of
when I
it?
cut my hair, buddy, it's over.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I cut my hair, and to me, that was the end of music.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna find out what the American dream was for me.
Yeah.
And so started working as this engineer. And what was cool, I was actually at that mine for like 2 years. Every time that part-time job would close, to the day, another company would come in and say, hey, we need you, because I knew the engineering points at the project.
Right.
And God would provide. And it was very cool. As we went on, all of a sudden I'm out of debt.
Huh.
And I can't tell you why. I can't tell you how, but I was out of debt. And it was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so ended up getting a full-time job with the last company I worked for. Ended up in Vernal, Utah for 2 years. That was my wilderness time.
Oh, wow.
Developing an oil shale mine in Vernal, Utah. And I'm serious, it was my wilderness time.
Did Dorla and the kids go with you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're all out there.
And at the end of that, I got promoted in this company called Frontier Kemper to a cost and scheduling engineer in the office.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, this is it. Bought my first home, rebuild it like I do every one of my homes.
Mm-hmm.
About the time it was finished, this is about a year into Frontier Kemper, I was sitting, I didn't have anything to do. I was sitting on Sunday after church with my wife on our couch, and I realized, oh my gosh, the house is done. I don't have to work on the house. And I thought, well, this must be the American dream. This must be what God has for me. I've got a great church. My kids are going to Christian school. I got a great job. I got a first home here. This must be the American dream. And all of a sudden God goes, and I'm serious. I feel God said, this isn't it. Don't be content with this. This isn't it. And I told my wife that. I said, babe, I feel like God just said this. And something else happened also, where someone basically prophesied to me and said, you're going to have your heart's desire. You're going to be a big change. And when they said big change, I go, oh no, because that meant to me, oh, I'm going to have to move again.
Yeah.
I don't want to, because I'd been moving it was like, come on. And he goes, no, this will be your heart's desire. Wow. And it had been 5 years. I was done.
Yeah.
I was too old to be a rocker. Come on.
So when they said heart's desire, was music even part of what you thought, or were you thinking it's going to be a bigger promotion to another engineering gig or something like that?
I honestly didn't know.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I didn't know what my heart's desire was. I was still trying to recover. Yeah. I was trying to I think a good example is I actually went and saw Petra. Oh. They played close to believe it or not, I was redoing the backstage of an old theater on my extra time off, on between jobs or whatever. And I found out this Christian band, Petra, was going to be playing there. I go, oh man, I went there, and I'll tell you what, and by that I had the record. I was a big fan of Petra's, major. Yeah. And I went there, I lasted for about 6 or 7 songs and realized it was driving me crazy. I was so ill ease that I wasn't on stage again. It had just fired up something that I had put back, way back. Yeah. And I had to leave. Wow. I didn't even sit through all Petra's concert. I had to leave because I realized, oh, this is kindling some fires I don't need.
Yeah.
And so it must have still been something in me, but I figured that it's too bad, John. You blew it a long time ago. It's too late for you. This is what you're going to do now. You're going to be an engineer. And so one day, my brother calls us up. My brother Jeff says, "There's a guy who he says he's Bob Hartman with a band called Petra, a Christian band. He gave me his number for you to call him. I told him you're not doing that kind of stuff anymore, but I got the number anyway. I don't. Do you want to?" I said, "Are you kidding me? Give me that number." Jeez.
How did Bob find out about you?
Boy, you're asking for long stories here, buddy. You know that.
We have an hour, right?
Okay. Well, remember this little church I was going to in Illinois? Okay. Well, there was a Christian band out of Peoria, I think. I was in Lincoln, and that's a distance of about an hour and 10 minutes. Well, the manager for this band was going to our little church because he was looking for an on-fire church, and this really was. And he realized who I was. He said, John, my band is recording an album, and they don't have a singer. Would you consider singing for the band? And I looked at my wife. She said, "No, it's not God. It's not God." And I said, "Well, I can't join a band. I mean, I could sing if you'd like, but I can't join your band." And he said, "Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe come to the studio after you get off work and just sing a song a day, and we can get it done." And I said, "What rinky dink." I just, okay. And this, talk about rinky dink. These guys, it was actually a good band, but they were, as usual, Christian band had no money.
Right.
They were recording in somebody's house.
Yeah.
And the board was set up in the kitchen, and I was singing in the living room.
Yeah.
I'm going, the last time I was in the studio, I was in LA. It's like, wow, this sure has been.
At least you weren't singing in the acoustically appropriate bathroom.
Oh, no, it's surprising they didn't put me in there, but no, it was the living room. They hand me words, let me hear the music, and say, "Okay, sing this song." I said, "You don't have a melody?" "No, we figured you would do it."
Wow.
So I would get the words, I would sing, I would build a melody.
Oh my goodness.
10 days in a row. Anyway, make a long story short, I figured you'd never hear the thing, so it was okay.
Yeah.
It got me a chance to get behind the microphone. Nobody'd ever hear it.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. Well, I didn't realize this guy, this manager, was a go-getter. And he printed, he must have printed 100 cassettes and sent it to every important person in the Christian music scene.
Yeah.
Every label, every reviewer. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. Now, at the time, I didn't know it. Praise God, or I would have been ticked.
Yeah.
But it got in the hands of a good friend of Bob Hartman's. He was a reviewer. And when they found out that Greg was leaving, he says, "Bob, if there's anything I can do, let me know." He said, "Well, you can find me a singer."
Yeah.
Well, he goes, I got this cassette of this band, and John Schlitt from Head East is singing on it. He says, "You're kidding me." He says, he disappeared like 5 years ago, which I did.
Right.
And I purposely got my phone unlisted because secular bands were calling me. And I could, I knew if I dumped right back in the secular system,
you'd be in trouble.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Remember, music or me.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was not an option. So I had disappeared. And Bob goes, the friend goes, "Well, I've got a number here on this cassette." He goes, "Well, let's try it." And the number was disconnected. But it fired him up. He started thinking, man, John Schlitt. He went and bought a couple of Head East records. Goes, "Oh yeah, his range is fine. He's a rocker too." And so and he said, and I know he was a Christian. Yeah, I knew that. And so he started looking he started going to every area code in Illinois
No kidding.
and started looking for, a listing of me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there. I mean, I was on no listing, but my brother Jeff had been one of the crew members during Flat as a Pancake, which was our first record, which was
Okay.
the big one. And so he found Jeff, and that's why he called Jeff.
No kidding.
And that's how Bob. So through a friend, it was God. It was God through
totally.
this friend, through this tape, and Bob called me and said, "John, this is Bob Hartman. Do you know who I am?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm a major fan, buddy. You guys." Because really, when I heard Petra, I was going, "Oh my gosh, this is what rock could be.
Yeah.
This is what rock's for."
Yeah.
And I was very, very impressed with them. I just the idea of using an exciting music form to sing about the most exciting subject in the history of mankind just made sense to me. He says, he says, Greg is leaving the band. I said, why? I'm thinking, why would anybody leave Petra?
Yeah.
He says, just trust me. It's God's plan that we separate.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning Bob and Greg,
Right.
I found out later.
Yeah.
Okay. I was in shock by this time because I thought maybe Greg messed his voice up a little bit and they wanted me to come in and do some background vocals to help finish the next record. It's like, whoa, this is a lot bigger. And he says, are you still a Christian? I said, yeah, I'm a heavy duty Christian.
Yeah.
And he looks at me, he said, would you consider singing for Petra? I said, oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
Well, now the question is, what did your wife say?
Oh, before I said that, all right, I'm thinking, music or me. And I look over, and apparently my wife knew more than I did about why Bob called. And she is dancing and praising God. And you'd have thought that Jesus just came down and was sitting and talking to me personally.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, looks like this is going to be okay. Because she said to me, John, God's not a God of waste. You're going to sing again.
Mm.
He's not a God of waste. I'm telling you. And I go, well, that's great. Every band that comes to talk to me, you say, not good enough. That's not God's plan. So what's God's plan? She says, you'll know. I said, well, you'll know, and then I'll know. And apparently she knew. So
how cool.
I said, let's do it right now. He goes, well, don't you think you should pray about it? I'm going, yeah, okay. But I tell you what, though, but he didn't realize that, the past, God's basically letting me know things were happening.
Yeah.
So I knew for a fact. My wife knew for a fact. It took them a while longer. They were still in the middle of a Beat the System tour, recording the live album, and they couldn't say anything. Nobody knew that there was anything happening. And I finally, it was like a 6-month period before when they asked, and then I finally went and did my first show. And in that 6 months, I hadn't heard a word from them. And finally, I called Bob's wife and says, Kim, I'm just curious because I have a job, and if I'm going to be with Petra, I need to let my bosses know.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to just throw it. I just don't want to dump it on. They've been very good to me. And Kim goes, Bob's on the road. I'll have him call you. Yeah. And Bob called me right away. And I said, Bob, I'm sorry to bother you, buddy. I just want to know, are you looking for someone else? Are you just, I just wasn't, you might've found, I'm okay with that. That's cool. Because really, to me, I was already done singing.
Yeah.
He goes, well, John, we haven't actually looked for anybody else. We're pretty, we think you're it. And I go, oh, okay. He says, but right now we're on tour and we got to do that. I go, oh, okay, but that sounds good. Great.
Yeah.
So finally, after about 6 months, the first show I did was show sober in 7 years.
Very cool.
I was in Brisbane, Australia, in front of about 6,000 people. Got super excited, blew my throat out after 3 songs. And God bless the band. They stuck with me until I finally got my groove again.
Yeah.
And
And now you're one of the iconic voices of Christian rock.
Well, only God knows why.
Well, I'm just curious because I will admit, because Back to the Street was your first album with a band, right?
Right.
I will admit I was a staunch Greg X. Volz fan.
You should be. He's amazing.
When this new vocalist came along, it's like, oh, what did Petra do? Oh, great. But after I got into a couple of albums, it's like, oh, I get it. This is awesome. This is great. How long did you feel right away that you had this kind of obstacle of getting over, oh, you're not Greg X. Volz, or were the fans mostly accepting and saying, no, this is awesome. This is great. What was that transition like for the band?
Well, you know what? I have to give you two parts on that. First of all, I knew God that put me there. I knew why Greg left. I knew that it was God's plan,
Right.
and I had no problems in it. My only concern when I first joined the band was, okay, I'm replacing Greg. What am I replacing? Is he a writer? His range, that's okay, no big deal. His stage show, it's okay, no big deal. But his writing, what about his writing? I started looking at the writing credentials. All of it was Bob Hartman. Going, yeah. Oh, great. I looked, my wife said, babe, this is going to work real good. And, somebody once or twice people said, what's it feel like filling Greg's shoes? I said, I'm not filling his shoes.
Right.
I got my own shoes and they're big enough. Trust me. And
yeah.
Greg with Greg, I'm me.
Yeah.
And what's funny is the records were developed because it's what Bob wanted. Mm-hmm. Bob wanted a rock album. When Beat the System came out, he was ticked because it was way too artsy, popish, electronic.
Okay.
And they almost phased him out, And he says, "Oh, that's never going to happen again."
Yeah.
He says, "We're going to rock. This is going to be a rock band." And I said, "Well, I can do that, buddy. That's no problem. I can be a rocker." And then we got John and Dino, who knew about who could produce rock all day long. The combination, John, Dino, and me, we came in and we just totally changed the sound of Petra.
And one of the things that I've often lamented is I hear a lot of great rock albums by artists in their younger days, and then as they age, they kind of mellow. But not John. John keeps that guitar crunch going and those screaming vocals going, and I appreciate that. I just want you to know, as a rocker at heart, I want to have something that sing the hair off the dog kind of a thing,
Well, I'll tell you what, Go to Me is probably the most mellow I'm going to be. My newest record, actually, that's not fair. I think probably the mellowest record I did, as far as me personally, would be The Grafting. And there was a reason for that. The Grafting was a real searcher. It was the first solo record after Petra retired.
Right.
I did Shake and Unfit for Swine during Petra, which was, both of them had their purpose. The Grafting was a searching, and it was searching. It dealt with a lot with the family focus, and it was a record that needed to be done. It was like, it was an arrow that had to be in my quiver, and I'm very proud of it. I mean, the title cut is about my grandkids.
Oh, very cool.
And I wouldn't be complete without it. But then came The Greater Cause, and then the Christmas Project,
which is one of my favorite Christmas albums, by the way.
Thank you. I am just very, very excited about them.
Yeah.
And they're just. Is it Bob's writing? No. I've never tried to be Petra. I've tried to be me with what I've learned through Petra and Head East.
Yeah. Well, you have expanded now, and I joke, the intro that I've written says you'll probably be singing as you cross the pearly gates, because you're just singing all the time, but you're singing with the Jay Sekulow Band, you're singing with the Union of Sinners and Saints. And I did a quick search, and you're doing albums for all kinds of people singing on there. Singing has become, that's what you're about, but it's not just singing, it's singing about God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, when Petra retired, I thought about maybe doing secular again, since I didn't have to worry about Petra's, image.
Right.
And I actually went to Seattle and co-wrote with a couple of writers out there, purposely writing secular songs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 2 of them. Came back, I hated them. They were the most ungratifying. I just hated them. I couldn't stand them. I listened to them while trying to get into them, going, "Oh, I hate these are garbage."
Uh-huh.
And they were done well. I just hated them, and
Yeah.
I realized, you know what? I got a taste of what rock and roll is really about.
Yeah.
And it's if you're not singing about Christ, for me it's secondary.
It's milquetoast.
It's almost a waste of time.
Yeah.
So now I love singing with the J band.
Yeah.
And because we're taking old classics and a bunch of Christians, old Christians, are playing secular stuff as good, if not better, than the originals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is fun.
And you've got a who's who lineup to sing with too. That's not a tough thing to
buddy.
do.
I mean, think about it. I got a lineup that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be on the same stage with them.
That's so cool.
Jeez.
So let's talk a little bit about, a lot of people go into a career and it's 10 years, 15 years. They have a shift in career, that kind of a thing. How do you sense God's call on your life to know that this is where you're supposed to be? And what is it that is the tug on your heart that says, I know this is where I'm supposed to be?
Oh my gosh. Well, I talk to a lot of people all the time. I mean, to a point where I need to get away once in a while. And they've really made a major deal about how Petra's music, for instance, has been a real inspiration. And the fact that I'm not quitting, the fact that I'm in there kicking on, singing for Christ, it's amazing. I'm like a Christian freak, which is cool, because I have been given a gift that it's nothing I've done. Trust me, I've done everything we possibly can do wrong as a singer, to quote protect or
Right.
strengthen my voice. But God has a plan, and there's no such word as retirement in the Word. So as long as I have a voice, as long as I'm healthy, and I tell you what, I heard in some places now that I didn't used to, but when I'm on stage, the adrenaline's pumping, and I'm the front man for Christ, like I've always been.
Yeah.
I may pay for it a little bit later, a little more later than I used to.
Yep.
But wow, is that the worst that can happen? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's still, I mean, to me, rock and roll, again, is such an avenue to bring across the story of Christ, the commission of Christ. A lot of, rock is so terrible, so terrible. Oh, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, to me, rock and roll is evangelistic. It's an evangelistic music style that can reach out to not just Christians, but if it's good enough, they're actually secular, non-Christians will listen to it. Now, if you're singing praise and worship, which is very gratifying, which is very edifying, and that's what it's all edifying. In other words, you're just tickling the ears of Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like, in my case, rock and roll is still Christian rock and roll is geared for evangelism.
Yeah.
The church was never that excited about it, but they sure liked the fact that it brought kids in.
Well, you're talking about the evangelism piece. I was talking with Simon Adal earlier this week, and he was telling me about a tour that the two of you did in Romania.
They were amazing. I love those guys.
How gospel music changed people, but it was more than that, but where these people were literally saying, because of you and your music, I'm a believer now. And I would imagine you have story after story like that, that you can talk about how God has used the music he's given you. He's used you as a messenger of this message of God's saving grace. Do you have one that stands out in your mind?
Oh, you know what? Let's make it general here.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
When we did the Spanish praise and worship album, that opened up all of Central and South America for update Christian music. In other words, up till that time, the Catholic Church pretty much had a gigantic hand on all Christian
Right.
and every pastor, every Catholic or not, oh, rock and roll, that's from hell, that's from hell. So the kids were being, they still wanted to listen to exciting music,
Yeah.
but every time they did, they were going to hell.
Right.
When Petra did Petra Praise One in Spanish, it opened up the eyes of the pastors
Mm-hmm.
because the kids would bring it in and say, "This is Christian music. This is Christian rock." And it can't be. And then they listened to the words. They realized it was traditional Christian praise and worship done in a rock form, and it absolutely. Oh my gosh, we exploded in
Yeah.
Central South America. I mean, every Petra record that was ever done was on the charts at the time. I mean,
Wow.
they went back and got the Sound album, and it was on the charts. I'm going, I don't even like that record. Don't listen to that thing. Come on. So it was, again, I see the fact of breaking the antique bondages for kids.
Yeah.
Now we got to be careful because as it worked, of course, the enemy is going to come here and do his best to cause counterfeits and cause confusion. That's why pastors are so important.
Yeah.
To listen and be cautious and and not just pastors, the kids themselves, Christian kids need to be getting in the Word and finding out, does this go with the Word?
Yeah.
Does this go with the Word? Be careful. Be careful. Enjoy, but be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you guys have paved the way. I know artists like Bride, and there's a bunch of others. Their biggest band or their biggest audiences of reaching the gospel are in South America, Brazil, and
oh gosh,
and
Argentina, Brazil,
yeah,
that's those two especially.
That's the music of that era or that area,
yes.
And you guys kind of helped pave that for Christian music for those guys down there.
When we did our first tour in South America, it was the No Doubt tour. And I want you, it felt like we were the Beatles.
Wow.
It was weird. I've never felt quite as, I hate the word, don't get me wrong, but sure. Quite so big,
mm-hmm.
With police escorts and security guards and running off the stage to run into the big van to get out before the crowd.
Wow.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was different.
Yeah.
It was cool.
So how have you've been doing music as a ministry for about 35 years. Mm-hmm. How have you seen the shift in music for people today? Do you see that as a positive thing? Is it a good growth? Do you feel like it's stagnated? What's your kind of sense on not necessarily the industry, but music as a whole in worship of the Lord and of the King?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's gone way over to edification, and there's a lot of amazing praise and worship. A lot of as long as it has a certain formula that sounds just like a lot of good stuff. As long as it fits the perfect formula that someone's created. I don't listen to it anymore. I don't listen to Christian music anymore because to me it's boring. There's no imagination. But it serves a great purpose, and the people that are doing it well. The skill factors of, it's almost like every big church has their own praise and worship team and their own CD.
Yeah.
And they're all pretty good, and doing a lot of their own writing. And it's like, okay, cool. But the church enjoys it very much. Well, what about the rest of the world?
Yeah. Open
the doors. When you open the doors, does your music do anything outside of doors, or is it just to edify you, the church?
Yeah.
I miss the evangelism of Christian music.
Yeah.
Now there are Christian bands out there that are working their tails off, but as usual, I don't feel the church or the Christian industry is supporting them one bit. To me, and I see them, and they're great bands, but they're being, I'm not going to go any further.
Sure.
Let's put it this way. You want change, what's the change? More education, less evangelism in music today.
And I think that is part of our churches as well. We're doing a lot of internal care. We're trying to say, let's help keep us safe, rather than saying, you know what, let's get our roller sleeves up, get our hands dirty, and go out and rub shoulders with, what did Jesus do? The prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors?
Amen. Amen.
So
again, now, does that mean every church? No.
Right.
I have pastors that are amazing.
Yeah.
But they're also playing my stuff too. So,
well, that's why they're amazing, right?
They must be good. They're a great church because they're playing my stuff. No.
Yeah.
It's just, when you look at it, when you look at the industry right now, when you try to listen to a Christian radio station, there's no rock that's for sure.
That's right.
It's all pop.
That's right.
It's all pop. It's all pretty much wrapped around pop and praise and worship. And there's not, now some will say, well, that's pop, that's the world right now. They're competing with, maybe. I just don't sense it. I mean, there's some major bands out there selling millions of records, but it doesn't do anything for me. Does that mean it's wrong? No.
Right. You're 100% correct. It just, the one other thing that I miss in music today is real people playing real instruments.
Oh, that's funny. That's only for us old timers.
I guess real instruments now are, what can I program on my keyboard, right?
Amen. Yeah, or what's on the video behind me as I dance.
Yeah. So, John, what is God kind of teaching you these days? Where is He leading you, whether musically or personally, or what is it that you're really excited about how God is kind of directing in your life these days?
Well, actually, I'm soul searching right now, buddy. I'm not very happy with myself. I've gotten too involved with the world surrounding me. I'm very disappointed in politics right now, and I could tell that it was starting to drag me down. I haven't been very happy. I haven't, and that's not God's plan. I mean, we as Christians aren't supposed to sit around and be, hi, I'm happy, joyful, and gay.
Right.
But on the other hand, I'm not supposed to be Mr. Depresso and be ticked off at the world. God's got bigger plans than that. Yeah. And I want to make sure that I walk a godly walk. And I'm sensing that it may not be as godly as I would like it to be. So it's funny you mention that, because I've been praying about it a lot lately. Yeah. And I need to turn the news off and turn the Bible on a little bit more. And I think we all do. Am I saying, love and dove and don't worry about anything? No. Yeah. I want you to be relevant. I want you to be cautious. I want you to make a difference in this world as a representative of Christ. And don't let them sneak up on you as you're hiding your head in the Christian sand and let them chop your head off. But on the other hand, love your enemy, which is not easy. Mm-hmm. Have a godly attitude towards everything. I'm struggling with that. I want to be different, and I hope that people understand what I'm saying. When they are doing the same thing, God has a plan. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for that plan as we speak, and I know I'm going to find it.
Well, and this is something that I've been hearing from a lot of people, whether it's news, whether it's social media, whether it's whatever. We're getting so good at saying, okay, there's opinion. I'm going to shout my opinion, rather than saying, hey, let's spend time together. Let's break bread together. Let's listen to each other. Let's try to figure out what is it that God wants us to do, and how do we do that? And I'm right with you, John. This has been a heart cry for in fact, part of the reason I started this podcast was to say, how can we as believers rebuild the community that's been lost? Because we've lost what community is.
Be real, but be loving, be understanding. But when I say be real, don't walk around like a wimp.
Right.
Wimp gets us nowhere.
Yeah.
The world does not want to follow a wimp.
Yep.
And we're representing Christ. So, but what a fine line. How can you be a Christ-like a Christ-like bold man
Yeah.
or lady. That's tough.
Yeah. And we need
So
to
I
dig
think,
back into the scripture and find out what that definition is, don't we?
well, yeah, get on your knees and fight like a man.
There you go.
Come on.
Well, to wrap up, every Saturday we send out a newsletter to a bunch of people who've committed to praying for artists. How can we specifically be praying for John in the weeks and months ahead?
Okay, twofold. I have a ministry called Build It Ministries. It used to be called John Schlitt Ministries. It's called Build It Ministries now. As we've talked about before, I do a lot of stuff with my hands. I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I build. When I'm not touring or not recording, I'm building. And I took that building skill and I'm starting to use it to help people that are in need of, anything from a roof to a new bathroom to I just got done with the 2-year project, which was basically rebuilding a house for a lady who was sick for 2 or 3 years and needed everything I'm doing. And now in the 2-year period, I've seen her go from just about hopeless to a victorious working business lady again. And that's what I want to see. So I pray for my ministry, but also pray for the opportunities to use my vocal talents and my speaking abilities, and of course always pray for my family.
Yeah.
Oh man, I guess that's it for me personally. That would be it.
I hope John Schlitt's testimony was encouraging to you today. I don't know if you're like me, but I've had a lot of self-doubt over the years. Am I good enough? Am I doing what God really wants me to do? Over the past several months of these podcasts, I've personally come to realize that God has given me gifts and talents to use for Him, just like God gifted John with a powerhouse rock voice. But you notice John chose to use that gift for something other than what God had intended there in the beginning. The change came when John decided to lay down his passion, even lay down the gifts that he'd been given, and focus on 2 things. 1, taking care of his family, and more importantly, strengthening his relationship with Jesus. I've heard a lot of stories from people who never really went anywhere, even though they were amazingly talented. That is, until they said, God, I give this all to you. I'll do it your way. Are you putting God first in the career path you have chosen? Or better yet, have you asked God to set your career path for you? I'm confident that when we ask the Lord to put us where He wants us, our expectations will be blown away. And I often wonder how many times we limit God's plan by insisting on doing things our own way. The Bible is full of verses that talk about letting God guide and direct our lives. Proverbs 3 verse 6 says, "Seek God's will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take." I like the verse in Jeremiah 29:11 where the Lord says, "I know the plans I have for you. They are good plans. They're plans to give you a future and a hope." And then in the New Testament, Romans 8:28, we probably all know this, but it says, "And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose." As I mentioned earlier, I've been changing the way I pray lately about my career and the direction that I go each day. Instead of saying, "God, will you bless me in my work today?" I've tried to change it and to say, "God, will you show me what work to do?" I think it's a subtle difference, but a really big one. God wants to use us in amazing ways. So why don't we get out of the way and let the talents and abilities God has given us shine in the way He wants them to? I can only imagine what kind of an impact we might have on the world if we just turn control over to Jesus for all that we do every day. As always, thanks for joining me for this conversation today. I am grateful that we get to spend this time together each week hearing stories of God's amazing faithfulness. As a regular listener to this podcast, would you mind taking a few minutes and rating it on your favorite podcast app? Reviews and ratings really help spread the word so that other folks can hear about these great conversations. And if you have comments or questions for me, please feel free to drop me a message on any of the social media platforms. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon by searching for @CCMExchange. Or you can always drop me an email on the website christianmusicarchive.com. I'm really looking forward to our time together next week when I have another great conversation with one of the musicians you'll find on the pages of the Christian Music Archive. So until then, remember this: God loves you. In fact, He's crazy about you.